Hey guys, today I will be taking a look at how the Rust Belt currently is for Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and specifically the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These states are all traditionally Democratic states. They have all gone to a Democratic candidate for president in basically the last 2 to 3 decades, with the exception of 2016, where President Trump was able to flip all three of these battleground states, and these are states that Clinton was expected to win. However, President Trump was able to win all three of these states. And so as you can see, this does put Joe Biden over 278 electoral votes. So it's going to be these three states that are going to put him over 270. It's not going to be a state like Arizona or North Carolina or Florida. It's going to be Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Because these three states are the states that are polling the best for Joe Biden out of all of these gray battleground states. So taking a look at the state of Wisconsin, Biden leads by 7.2%. Michigan, Biden leads by a whole 8%. Pennsylvania, Biden leads by 7.3%. So we can see here likely margins in all three of these states for Joe Biden. I mean, the 7.2, Biden is at 50%. Michigan, Biden is at 51% of the vote. That's very important, as we'll talk about later. And then Pennsylvania, Joe Biden 51% as well. So basically what this means is that if every single undecided voter votes for Donald Trump, he would still lose all three of these states because Joe Biden is at over 50%. If we were to take a look at the polls in Michigan from 2016, for example, we can see that Hillary Clinton did not underperform. She had the same exact showing that the polls expected. She did not do any worse or any better than what the polls said. The polls were spot on for Hillary Clinton, and that is true. She did not underperform. Trump just overperformed. He was able to win basically all of the undecided voters at the very last minute. Because you can see the last poll went for Trump, all the polls before it went to Clinton. And this poll was the last poll conducted in the election, which is why Trump at the end of the day was able to win the state of Michigan, because the undecided voters swung to his side at the very last moment, as people did not see Clinton as a trustable candidate, which is why she did not win those states. If we take a look at Pennsylvania, we see the same thing here. Clinton did not do any worse. She actually did better than what the polls said. Trump just did even better than what the polls said by a larger margin. He went from all the way from 44.7 to 48.2, winning the race here in Pennsylvania. And do I think this is going to occur this time around? No, because Clinton was never at 50%. At her peak in Pennsylvania, she was at 49.3. This was the best state out of all three of these states in terms of polling for Hillary Clinton. And this was all the way back in August. I mean, in October, she did hit 49% as well, but her lead, as you can see, has been much less consistent. It has fallen all the way down to 2.4% at one point, and right before the election, fell all the way to 2.1%. Taking a look at Michigan here, Joe Biden is doing much better than Clinton. In this state as well. Clinton, her peak was all the way in May with 48%, and she peaked again in late October with 48.7%, but still, that's still worse than Joe Biden's margin right now. And, this 47% really was the percentage that she saw on election night. But if we were to take a look at this, you see so many more ups and downs in the state of Michigan and Pennsylvania between Clinton and Trump than you see between Biden and Trump this time around. Michigan, as you can see, the polls pretty much been very stable. I mean, you saw that Biden had a larger lead in June and July, and you see that Biden's doing a little bit better right now as well. Taking a look at Pennsylvania, this is basically the same thing. I mean, it was a little bit close at the beginning of this election cycle, but after the months of June and July, Joe Biden has been consistently leading by at least 4 or 5%, and now he's at basically the largest lead he's ever seen in Pennsylvania. And then the state of Wisconsin, same thing, very similar to the numbers that we're seeing in Pennsylvania. And as you can see, it was closer at the beginning, but after May, June, and July, Biden's numbers were really able to increase quite a bit. He's now up 7.2%. And the polls in 2016, I mean, they show a similar picture here. Clinton did basically what her polls said she would. Trump overperformed by 7 points. And this is the only state in which Clinton was expected to win, and there was a less than 5% chance of Trump actually winning, because the margin of error did not put that within a Trump victory at all. So this was the only state that the polling average actually got wrong. But what we have to note here is that these polls, none of them were conducted as closer to election day as the other ones that we saw in both Michigan and Pennsylvania. I mean, the last poll from Trafalgar Group, I believe, right there, it was conducted on the 6th of November, And then in Pennsylvania, we see the same thing, 3rd to the 5th. And then in the state of Wisconsin, the last poll was conducted from the 1st to the 2nd of November. So the polls were conducted much earlier, and there was really no later poll out of state of Wisconsin, which is why Clinton was expected to win based on the polling data. But I'm sure that if a poll was conducted, I guess from the 5th to the 6th of November, it would definitely show President Trump doing much better. At the end of the day, he was able to do much better, as you can see, plus 7% from what Trump was expected to have. So, the polls were actually pretty good for Clinton in the state of Wisconsin, but at this point in time, he's doing so well in both Michigan and Pennsylvania. I don't see Biden losing Wisconsin at this point in time either. Taking a look at the voting histories of these 3 states, I think it's pretty interesting. You will see that these 3 states have gone to the Democratic Party in at least every single election since 1992, Wisconsin since 1988. So this is a state that has been pretty solid for the Democratic Party for decades. I mean, Barack Obama won this state with 56% of the vote, almost a solid margin in 2008 against John McCain. In 2012, he won just 52% against Mitt Romney, won it by around 7%. So I guess it was much smaller than 2008. But 2012, it wasn't bad for Barack Obama. And then you see that in 2016, Hillary Clinton really did much worse than any of these candidates before him. Before her, she did much worse than Obama, and then she did worse than John Kerry even, and Al Gore. And as you can see, there was a huge amount of that undecided vote still. But Donald Trump, at the end of the day, he was able to win over those undecided voters who decided who they were going to vote for very, very late. So this state been pretty traditionally Democratic in the last couple of decades, but 2016 it did flip, and now it seems as if it's going to flip back, and it's probably going to be one of the largest margins Democrats have seen in this state in a while. The state of Michigan, very similar, as you can see, has gone to a Democrat since 1992 when Bill Clinton flipped it from Republican control for over a decade. And as you can see, 1992, Bill Clinton won this state when it was still 18 electoral votes. And then now it's moved down to 16. And then, of course, 2016, Trump won it. 2012, 2008, Obama won. Kerry won it. Gore won it. And Bush won it, of course. So as you can see, Barack Obama did very, very well in 2008. He won this state by 16.4%. Just 12 years ago. In 2012, he won it by around 10%, so a little bit less than 10%. Still a pretty solid margin for Barack Obama. He did underperform in basically every single state compared to 2008, but he still won the election. In 2016, Clinton did very poorly for a Democrat in the state. He did worse than Al Gore, did worse than John Kerry, and 47.3% to Trump with 47.5%. Now, what's surprising is that Trump actually did worse than George W. Bush did in 2004 when he still lost the state. That was just because of the huge amount of undecided voters in these 3 states, and basically nationwide. There was a lot larger third-party vote, and many people who just skipped out on that election 4 years ago because, well, I mean, those candidates were very unlikable. They were both very disliked by the American public. And I mean, yeah, so there was a huge amount of room for a third-party candidate. I mean, Gary Johnson polled at 10% at one point, so that is really something that we don't see in this modern political landscape at this point in time. Pennsylvania, as you can see, also very Democratic history. You will see that Republicans have controlled this state for most of history. However, Democrats have had, stints in time when they were able to flip it. You saw with FDR in the 30s and early 40s. You saw it with Kennedy, Johnson, and then Humphrey in the 60s. You saw it with Carter in 76 when he was able to flip this state. And then ever since Clinton won it again in 1992, it's been a Democratic state ever since. 2000, Gore won 50%. 2004, 51% for Kerry. And then you'll see that Hillary Clinton, of course, did much worse. You'll see again that Barack Obama won this state by 10% in 2008. Did a little bit worse in 2012, and then Clinton did even worse in 2016. So this is another state that Trump was able to surprisingly win. Honestly, Michigan and Pennsylvania, these states did have a chance of going to President Trump according to the polls, but Wisconsin did not. According to the polling that we had, Wisconsin was polled incorrectly. But this time around, the polls have definitely gotten better. And I mean, the thing is that in 2016 there was a lot more room for candidates to be gaining and losing support. I mean, the polls are pretty up and down in 2016. I mean, it's very up and down between Clinton and Trump, and we'll see this even more on the nationwide scale. Trump actually led over Hillary Clinton at one point. If you were to take a look at the polling data nationwide, or basically any state, Biden has basically been consistently leading this entire time. I mean, there were times at the beginning of the campaign when Biden wasn't doing as well, but ever since he took a strong and commanding lead, he has never lost that lead. And it's very unlikely that Joe Biden will lose this lead in the coming weeks. Trump has had a horrible week last week, as I said earlier today, and honestly, the Trump campaign really needs something big for them to even have a chance at this election. And next, I want to take a look at the betting odds for these 3 states. Numbers have seen a little bit of a dip for Joe Biden, but he's still at one of his highest points ever in terms of the betting odds in these states. I mean, right now, Joe Biden 72% to Donald Trump with 31%. So this is a state that Trump, keep in mind, won in 2016. And Joe Biden now has a over 70% chance of flipping this state. The state of Michigan, 77 cents. That's the best offer. And then the yes price right now is 76 cents. You will see that the numbers have dropped a little bit for Joe Biden here as well, but 75% to Trump with 26%. I'm not actually sure why this is, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with Trump no longer being contagious or being able to spread COVID-19, I believe. I'm not exactly too sure on that, but that was something that came out earlier today, I believe. So Trump is no longer able. He no longer has a transmission risk for COVID-19. As you can see, 69 right now for Joe Biden. This was yesterday, and now it's gone down to 69 cents for a yes price. So the numbers are still pretty good. They're still holding for Joe Biden. I mean, much better than what he was seeing in late September. And after that first debate, I mean, Biden's numbers surged everywhere. And then they surged even more after Trump was diagnosed with COVID-19. Michigan has actually been pretty solid for Joe Biden this entire time. The lowest point Joe Biden ever had was 67 cents per share. So honestly, Michigan has been pretty solid for Joe Biden this entire election cycle. You know, you'll take a look at the polls. Biden has been leading this whole entire time. Wisconsin, not so much actually. Wisconsin, I mean, huge dip for Joe Biden in late August, but he went right back up. So everything is looking good for Joe Biden. Every single sign points to a Biden victory in these 3 states. And yes, that's only going to occur if everybody votes. That's very important. It's very important that everybody does vote for the candidate. You know, it doesn't matter who you support. Just vote for the candidate that you support so that, you know, your voice will be heard, because it will be. And of course, vote as early as you can and all of that. But in 2016, Clinton was also expected to win all 3 of these states. But the difference is that, well, right now, Joe Biden is at 50% in all 3 of these states. It's very important. That is a lot less room for Donald Trump to be able to overperform. If he can, he can overperform as much as he wants, and he still won't win these states because Biden is at 50%. Taking a look at the polls, I mean, Biden leads out of every single poll out of these states. I mean, I can show you guys more polls. There's not a single poll where Trump leads, and this is very concerning. Honestly, if Biden leads in every single poll out of this state, I really don't see the state flipping, and I really don't see any surprises. I mean, there's one Rasmussen report from September 3rd that shows Biden and Trump even, so definitely, I think that Joe Biden will definitely win the state of Pennsylvania. This is his birth state, and to get closer in mid-September. However, now at this point, I don't see a pathway to recovery for President Trump. State of Michigan, 8%. This state has never really gone below 6% for Joe Biden. He's been doing very, very well in this state, and a state that he has always been expected to win this election cycle. I mean, the betting odds might not have been on his side at the beginning, but now they definitely are, and I definitely believe that Joe Biden will flip the state of Michigan back, and I think we'll see some Obama 2012 numbers for Joe Biden in all of these states. Honestly, I think that nationwide, we will see similar to the Obama 2012 numbers. Definitely not by popular vote. I think Joe Biden will almost definitely outperform Obama's margin in terms of the popular vote. I believe he won by around 3% in 2012. I think that Joe Biden will definitely do better than that. But in 2012, the Electoral College was less beneficial for the Republican Party. I mean, it still was, but it's even more now as Clinton, of course, won the popular vote but lost the election. So for Joe Biden, he would have to win by a larger popular vote margin to win the election. So Wisconsin, 7.2%. I think that we'll see some pretty similar numbers between 2016, or not 2016, between 2012 and 2020. 2016 was a disaster for the Democratic Party. I mean, they had everything on their side. They had so much money. And Clinton, honestly, she neglected these states. Hillary Clinton did not visit Wisconsin within the last 5 months of the election. The last time she visited the state of Wisconsin was all the way back in June when she was still fighting for the Democratic nomination. So since the convention, Hillary Clinton never visited the state of Wisconsin for any sort of rally. So that definitely hurt her campaign. She lost Wisconsin by the largest margin out of these 3 states. And I think that neglecting these 3 states, states that voted fully Democratic Party for decades now. I think that was definitely a mistake. I mean, it was understandable because these states were still polling pretty well for Hillary Clinton throughout the campaign. But I mean, Joe Biden not making that same mistake. He is visiting every single vulnerable state. He's visiting Nevada. We saw Kamala Harris in Las Vegas just a couple days ago. He's going to visit North Carolina, Florida. I mean, he has so much money in Florida right now, and he is spending a lot of time. He just had his train tour, his Amtrak tour in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So definitely he is solidifying his lead in these states. That's what is going to bring Joe Biden over 270 electoral votes. These states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which are now likely states. And believe it or not, he's polling better in these 3 states than he is in Nevada, a state that went to Hillary Clinton in 2016. I don't know why Colorado and New Mexico are actually solid states on this map, but still these 3 states polling so well for Joe Biden. He is leading in Arizona, he's leading in Florida, leading in North Carolina, all by lean margins, should I add. He's leading in Georgia, Ohio, and then Iowa. So honestly, everything looks as if it's still on Joe Biden's side. I'll continue to update you guys on the state of this election, but right now Joe Biden continues to do very well in these 3 key states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the 3 states that Biden does desperately need to win this election. So as a result of this, Joe Biden is on track to winning the election in November. And so yeah, join my Discord server if you have not. It is at the very top of the description below. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I really appreciate that. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, along with any suggestions for videos you'd like to see from me in the future, and I will see all of you guys in the next video.